You're listening to Trek.fm.
Welcome, everyone, back to From There to Here, Trek.fm's journey through 729 hours of Star Trek for the 50th anniversary. I am one of the hosts this week, Matthew Rushing, and with me is, as he is most of the time when I'm recording these days, the illustrious, the wonderful John Mills.
Yes, it does seem that we're joined at the hip. We're like the O'Brien and Bashir of the podcasting universe.
I like that. Never a better bromance to be compared to than O'Brien and Bashir. So
I agree.
Well, John, we've got a couple of new episodes to talk about today. We are going to be doing a Voyager Deep Space Nine pairing again, and our first episode is Remember here for Voyager. And John, let everybody kind of have the background on this one, just in case they might have forgotten a few things.
Well, the focus of this episode is that Voyager is returning a group of people, an alien race, of course, and along the way, B'Elanna starts having these very vivid dreams where they feel like more than dreams. They feel like memories that have been imparted upon her. And we come to find out that she is reliving a sort of jumbled mismatch of different memories that are being, pushed through to her, but not necessarily in a malicious way. People start investigating things, and we find out that it's the memories of somebody who has been carrying a terrible secret of these people. And just as a side note, this is actually, the concept for this was a Joe Menosky concept for something that was supposed to involve Troy from The Next Generation, and instead got reused here. And so that's the episode in a nutshell. Matt, what'd you think of it?
Well, I think, John, this episode is interesting when you look at it from a thematic standpoint, in the fact that what's happening here is watching the history, basically, of something that our society has been through before. In what would it have been like to have been somebody who was growing up, say, in Nazi Germany as a teenager and as a young person, and slowly got kind of sucked into just doing what the homeland did, and then feeling immense regret for that afterwards. And I think that's really what happens in this episode is that somebody realizes later on in their life the evil that they perpetrated. And the society has been keeping it under wraps, has been continuing the lie. It's almost as if Nazi Germany won and just continued that lie, and somebody finally wanted to break out with the truth about what they had done to certain sects of that society and couldn't let that stay silent anymore. For me, that's what makes this episode its best. That's where it's at its best. I think it creates a very nice look at what happens, and that evil can't stay hidden forever. And
True.
So I think that's where this story really shines. And for that, I really I think this is a pretty good episode of Voyager, especially because it doesn't leave it with any kind of reset button. It just leaves that culture in the end to kind of have to deal with it, and the characters to deal with it. And so, I think it's one of the episodes of Voyager that's well done. I don't know, John. What did you end up thinking?
Well, I'm not crazy about the episode. I agree with you about the concept. I agree with you about the themes, but I wasn't nuts about the final episode. There are some choices made in the storytelling that I don't really agree with, that I think sort of blunt the arc of things. But at the same time, I know that we've sort of gone down a road like this before in Star Trek, especially by the time Voyager comes along. So they were trying to mix things up and make it a little different. I think that one of the key mistakes, in a sense, was constructing the story with B'Elanna. When I found out that the concept dates back to to Troy, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. She's an empath.
Yes,
and
yes.
it would have made sense. Like, there was no sort of, I guess, Trek-type explanation as to why B'Elanna in specific would have been targeted. At this point, I think it's because I guess it made sense for her to, have the story arc because of the makeup of the crew. But at the same time, it's an odd thing to nitpick, I know, but it was just something that stands out to me.
Yeah, I think you're onto something in the sense that you're not going to probably have this happen to Janeway on the crew. What's interesting is that they don't choose Kes because Kes is an empath on Voyager, and she kind of has some of the same properties as a makeup of a character that Troy did have. But I think what it was is they're like, you know what, we need a Torres show, we need a B'Elanna show, and let's use her here. What's interesting is that by using her, you are able to use her kind of impetuousness and her, her non-PC nature. When she busts into the final meeting between these, the Starfleet and this race here, the Anarans, and they're about to toast, and she busts in and is like accuses them of all being murderers and stuff. And Kes wouldn't do that, and Janeway wouldn't have done that. But you end up with that scene with B'Elanna. And I also think it's one of the episodes that helps to begin to repair the relationship between Janeway and B'Elanna in a sense of making them trust each other more. Because I like Janeway's response to B'Elanna, because she is very understanding. She says, I might have done the exact same thing if that's what I had experienced. And she believes B'Elanna too. So I think I'm with you. There are some things that are done well. There's some things that aren't done well, and it's kind of back and forth. And so on a whole, it's a little bit uneven. But, when I'm talking about Voyager, maybe I give it a little bit more slack because it's Voyager. And so it turns out to be a, maybe middle of the road episode.
Yeah, I mean, don't misunderstand me. I don't dislike the episode. There are just a couple of choices I think they could have made better. But, the theme saves it in the end.
Right, exactly. Well, the next episode, John, I think is one that both you and I don't know. I think we're going to only have good things to say, but I don't know about you, but I've been looking for Parmak in all the wrong places.
Looking for Parmak in too many faces. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. What a great episode, John.
This is a fantastic episode. This is Deep Space Nine firing on every possible This is Deep Space Nine firing on cylinders that it doesn't even have. It's like borrowing cylinders from other shows.
Yes.
It is magnificent from beginning to end. And basically, if anybody's unfamiliar with this plot, or you're coming through and you're rewatching, or you're listening to this first, Looking for Parmak in all the wrong places is the love show, basically, where everybody's falling in love, and it's not with who they think they're going to be falling in love with. And it's all kicked off by by Quark's ex-wife, Grilka, who's a Klingon, showing up and stirring feelings within Worf because he sees a strong Klingon female, and he is immediately smitten with her. And one thing leads to another, and he winds up trying to help Quark win her heart.
Which is fantastic, because at the same time that he's trying to help Quark win Grilka's heart, Dax is trying to help Worf help Quark because she wants Worf's heart. And it's this wonderful, like, the most awkward love square you've ever seen.
So true. And the thing that I love also is when Worf helps Quark with the first date, basically, and Quark passes on that he all of his advice made her say that Quark had the soul of a poet. The only thing that can possibly jump to my mind at that point is Cyrano. this episode very cleverly turns Worf into Cyrano, which is so unexpected and so left field. It's like, wait, what just happened? And I think that is beautiful. But then you have this amazing, in my opinion, B plot where Chief O'Brien and Kira start developing feelings for each other. Now, at this point in the series, of course, Kira is being the surrogate mother. She's pregnant, and Miles is being protective of her as a result. And it's stirring up these feelings for them where they realize by the end that they're kind of falling for each other, that there's something there. And this is where I really want to give this episode a lot of credit, because when I saw this episode, I had neither been married nor had children. And I think that its portrayal of pregnancy is very, very cute and very true on many levels. And I think that also the fact that you have a television show, it's very rare for a television show to show two characters who, one of whom is in a relationship already, make a choice where they acknowledge that there are feelings and say, yeah, but nothing's going to happen here, so let's just shake and walk away. It's such a terrific example of choices that people can have, through time, where it's like you may develop feelings for somebody else, but you have to acknowledge that you can't act on them. And that makes the episode, that takes the episode from fun episode with Worf and everybody else to excellent episode that I would definitely put. This is in my top 10 of Deep Space Nine.
No, I completely agree, and I what I love about that is the grown-up nature that these two characters deal with the situation that they're in. O'Brien and Kira very much acting as adults, and saying, yeah, there's something here, there's something that's beginning, but we're both with other people. O'Brien, I've got kids. You're carrying one of my kids. No, this is not going to happen, and creating the space to move away so that everything then, I think, later on in the series, they can just be what they need to be, which is friends, and I think it's wonderful. It's really well done. And like you said, this doesn't happen on TV very much, to have a mature response to these kind of feelings, because you're right. If you've been married, you understand that this is going to happen to you.
Yes.
Every married man that I've known, myself included, this has happened to. And you have to do one of two things. You either are dumb and you start acting on those feelings, or you just let it go and you go back home to your wife like O'Brien does.
Right. And it's not an unhappy choice. It's simply an acknowledgement that this is your life. You made your choice, and you are, this is the life you have. So
right, exactly. Yeah, and it's a grown up decision, and so I love that. And on the other side, to go back to the Worf and Jadzia thing, I really want to get into this for a second, because I think this is the thing that really makes Deep Space Nine special, and that it acknowledges that these people have actual lives that aren't just about exploring the galaxy. They have interpersonal relationships that are going to go places. You're going to begin to fall in love with people around you. I think that Jadzia started falling for Worf the moment she met him on Deep Space Nine, because there's an amazing chemistry when he goes, "Nice hat," and Way of the Warrior to Jadzia. Yeah, it's fantastic. There's already electricity there, and that just continues to build throughout the series. And they finally allow these characters to move forward with their lives that doesn't have anything to do with the galaxy. It's just, that's what happens when you put this many people together. And I think that, again, that's what makes Deep Space Nine very special, is we get to see the nitty-gritty of the lives. When they say that Star Trek Deep Space Nine is gritty, I think this is where we're talking about it. It's just the nitty-gritty. What happens to people when, they spend a lot of time together. They fall in love, they have kids. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. So I just think it's just a really wonderful episode in every single way possible.
Completely agree. So that's it in a nutshell for this episode of From There to Here. Matt, where can people reach you if they want to talk about it?
Well, gosh, John, you can find me all over the place. I'm on Twitter at MattRushing02. I'm also here on the network talking about Deep Space Nine on The Orb with Chris Jones, so be sure to check that out. And talk a lot of Deep Space Nine as well on Literary Tracks. We talk about the books and the comics of Star Trek with Dan and Bruce. We also get a chance to interview the authors, so that's a lot of fun. And then I'm also doing the General Geek Show here on the network called the 602 Club, and we're talking about everything beyond Star Trek, all the other fandoms that we love. It's a blast. Check that out. I think you'll love it. And then, of course, John, we have this show that I think you might want to let everybody know about because it's one of the places you can be found.
Indeed it is, Matt. It's called Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast. You can find us over on iTunes, and we are talking Star Wars, all the time on that show, obviously, as implied in the title. But it's a quick format show where we're coming at you with some different takes on some really, to borrow your phrase in talking about looking for Parmok, nitty-gritty. And you can also find me here on the network with Mike Schindler co-hosting Stage 9, the podcast that explores the non-Trek work of Trek creators. And you can find me on Words with Nerds with my pal Craig. And then look for Kessel Junkie on your social network of choice, and I'll be there at some point.
Well, John, I hope everybody's had a great week with us. Thank you so much for joining us here on From There to Here, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time as we dig into some more episodes.